everyone. Thank you for making time to join us for today's virtual event as we launch ATI's cooperation with Norad as well as the new RLSF structure. My name is Lucy Marshall. I'm a Senior Claims and Recoveries Officer at ATI, and I'll be your host throughout the event. Our agenda for today is split in three main parts: the formal launch of the ATI NORAD Corporation, a brief presentation on the new RLSF structure, and a panel discussion with industry experts familiar with liquidity instruments such as RSF. Before we begin, allow me to share with you a few ground rules for your efficient use of this platform. Within the screen that you can see at the moment, you should have a few sections. The main screen where you are able to view the various panel discussions and presentations. Directly underneath this screen, you should have links to brochures with additional information on our renewable energy sector initiatives. On the right-hand side of the screen, you should be seeing the agenda, and directly beneath that, there's an interactive box that you can use to type out any questions you may have and to participate in the two upcoming poll questions. We encourage you to type out your questions throughout the event, and we shall also have a Q&A session at the end of the program, during which we shall address the questions raised. In case of any technical challenges, kindly return to the lobby and submit your questions there. Our service providers will provide assistance at the earliest opportunity. Lastly, a recording of this event will be shared on ATI's social media platforms in the coming days. With that, we look forward to an interactive and insightful session. And without further ado, allow me to give the stage to Benjamin Mugisha, the Chief Underwriting Officer of ATI, who will share the official opening remarks and a brief background on RLSF. Over to you, Benjamin.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you everyone for attending this launch. We are very honored to have you on. In terms of the background, the story behind RLSF could be traced to December 2016, when the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, that's BMZ, approved a total investment grant of euro 31.6 million. That included a grant component on top of that of euro 1.3 million to support the RLSF project as it had been envisioned at that time. And really, the background to this, goes back a few years before that. So prior to that, ATI was very keen to support renewables on the continent and had supported transactions such as wind projects, mini hydros, and several other hydro projects on the continent. And one of the things that we saw was the difference in structuring for the transactions that was almost always clearly related to size. So for the much larger transactions, we supported the 300 megawatt wind project in Kenya. There were lots of supporting mechanisms put in place, partial guarantees. There was a lot of DFI involvement, and it just seemed that there was a gap that was existing for some of the smaller to medium-sized projects. And when we looked at this through a consultancy and through the support of KfW and all our other partners, we realized there was a pure opportunity here to actually help green the continent by providing an innovative tool to support the smaller to medium-sized transactions. And that's the background behind which RLSF was born. In 2017, it was then officially launched, and over the last few years, we've seen a combination of keen interest from the market, so developers who see the value of the product, as well as from governments who are looking to have RLSF embedded in their PPP framework, the public-private partnerships for energy. And this has led to the rollout of RLSF in several countries. So RLSF is available in ATI member countries such as Benin, Uganda, Malawi, Burundi, and even Zambia is a member. And of course, several other countries are at various stages of joining RLSF. And also in terms of real deals happening, we've supported transactions, solar PV in Malawi, hydro in Burundi, and there's a healthy pipeline of projects coming through. So it is this background that, when we looked at RLSF as a mechanism, we could see that there was a test that had been proven. So the concept worked. There was a real value add in having this product on board, and we started to see an opportunity to expand this. We had discussions with several partners, and we are happy today to announce, the launch of a broadened partnership. And obviously, I'll let more of this come out in the discussions today. But the whole idea behind today's launch is to say there is RLSF on the table, enhanced, improved, more capacity. We're looking to actually develop the product across more markets to build on the successes that we've seen over the last 5 or so years, to actually provide support in the renewable space. And that partnership can only be complete if we have strong relationships with yourselves, whether it's on the developer side, whether it is on the market side, the utilities, whether it's the governments. All this is actually embedded in the way RLSF works, as will be highlighted as we go forward. But more so because there is a willingness from our development partners to support us, and we're very proud to have Norad joining RLSF, and that really is just to paint a picture of where we have come from in a few minutes, and then to hand over back to Lucy for us to go into the main agenda of the day. So over back to you, Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Indeed, at ATI, we always aim to do better, to make impact, and create solutions aimed at sustainably delivering value whilst mitigating the worst. The RLSF product is one such solution, as highlighted by Benjamin. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to the launch of the ATI and Norad cooperation. During this session, we'll hear remarks from the Chief Executive Officer of ATI, the Director General Norad, and the Senior Vice President KfW. I'm therefore pleased to welcome and give the stage to Manuel Moses, the Chief Executive Officer of ATI. Welcome, Manuel.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. And thank you so much for joining this event. We are glad that you spared some time to witness this cooperation that we are having with the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, otherwise known as Norad. I would like to also thank my colleague, Bard from Norad, and also later on Herman from the KfW. Mine is just to add my additional welcome to you from the Norad team to join us together with KfW on this very important initiative. As has already been explained by Benjamin earlier on, trying to resolve the issue of greening the continent needs many instruments. At ATI, thanks to the support under this RLSF, we are doing our contribution to greening of the African continent's energy needs. We know that we contribute very little in terms of greenhouse emissions, but we are also cognizant that we need to grow, but in a green and sustainable way. So this is a very important initiative. At ATI, we are committing resources, and we are happy that our partners are also joining us in bringing more capacity in this area. So thank you again to the NORAD team and to KfW for the continued support that we've enjoyed under this program. Over the last, since we launched with KfW 5 years ago, we have made some significant gains. We've signed MOUs with several countries, and we continue to promote other countries to join this RLSF. And we have done some projects that you will hear more about today. I think I can mention the Mubuga project. I can talk about the Salima project. I can talk about the Kota Kota project, Kolomati project. All these are solar PV projects that have happened thanks to the support that we have provided under the RLSSF. Obviously, we want to build on to these early successes, but we need to do more. And as you will hear from our colleagues today, is that we need to, there were some adjustments that we needed to make it even more effective and adjust the way the offering works. So we're happy that you will hear again from our speakers today how these changes would definitely help in making it more impactful. We are so grateful that under this partnership with NORAD, We have been provided with more resources and also a technical assistance component that will help us to become a center of excellence in this area in de-risking power projects across the continent. Us at ATI, we are also very, very committed to this new partnership, and we look forward to collaborating with Norad, KfW, not just in this energy space, but other sectors too, using the same model. So I'm so proud and happy that we have Norad today, and we hope to get other partnerships with other colleagues and institutions that are like-minded in promoting the renewable energy space in the continent. So with those remarks, I look forward to the participation of everyone. I thank the speakers and the panelists that are going to speak later on. And I will be listening in and nodding my head in agreement. And I'm sure out of these sessions, we'll be able to leave it with a little bit more understanding and how we can deploy the resources that we have. And very soon, we'll be asking other partners to join because we've run out of capacity. Thank you very much, Lucy, and I look forward to the deliberations.
Thank you so much, Manuel, for those remarks and for emphasizing the value of strategic partnerships to ATI's attainment of its mandate. We'll now hear from Bud Vega, the Director General, NORAD.
So great to be with you. You might be hearing some sounds in the background now. We're working to get it away. Anyway, what we're talking about today is how to deal with two huge and interlinked challenges: energy access and climate, and what can be a solution to both. Private investments in renewable energy is critical to ensure electricity access to the remaining more than 600 people without access in sub-Saharan Africa. At the same time, the International Energy Agency reports that net zero by 2050 requires private investments for clean energy to increase sevenfold during the next decade. And that is why grant funding from Norad and of course from KfW is crucial by de-risking commercial investments and thereby securing financing for projects in high-risk environments. Norad, we expect our contribution of first loss capital and technical assistance to lead to first more guarantees being issued, of course, and then secondly, increased outreach, that is more MOU signed and more systematic contact with project developers, but also thirdly, product innovation and specifically targeting off-grid projects also. There is, and I should add this, there is great support for this guarantee partnership among Norwegian stakeholders. I meet quite a few investors, project developers, politicians, and also our internal staff. And there's a lot of enthusiasm for moving into this. And to Norway, this partnership with ATI is part of a broader initiative also on developing guarantees that include a collaboration with MIGA on non-commercial risk guarantees and a scheme administered by Norad ourselves to subsidize guarantees and risk premiums. I would also like to commend KfW and ATI for initiating the RLSF scheme back in 2017. What you have established is already proven to be a highly relevant and popular product with several great results already. Norad, on behalf of the Norwegian government, is excited to see how our support can help expand the RLSF and mobilize more commercial financing for clean energy in Africa. Norad's cooperation so far with ATI and KfW has been very good. Now the real work of lifting projects off the ground begins, and we look forward to continuing this cooperation. And remember, the IEA projects that African energy use will double from now till 2040. If that is mainly coal, it's a climate catastrophe. If it's mainly renewable, it can both lead to increased energy access and also be a really important part of global climate policy. Again, I look forward to working with you, and Manuel, I plan to come to Nairobi this spring actually, and to meet you and hopefully also the ATI staff in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Certainly, Norad's collaboration with ATI is much welcome and a big step towards renewable energy in the continent. Thank you so much. I now welcome on stage Helmut Gages, Senior Vice President, KfW.
Well, thank you for being invited to this launch event. I'm very pleased to welcome Norad on board of a regional liquidity support facility, and also to extend our collaboration with Norad in this very important development sector. The facility was initially set up between KfW and ATI in 2017 to address the problem of short-term liquidity risks that prevents renewable energy projects from being implemented. The facility targets IPPs, so-called independent power producers, by providing a risk mitigation instrument to enhance investment, private investment, for the African renewable energy sector. The overarching aim is to mobilize finance for private investments contributing to sustainable energy for all in sub-Saharan Africa, supporting renewable energy generation, energy efficiency, and energy access. By providing this grant, Norad is enabling ATI to expand the pipeline of projects that may benefit from the liquidity guarantee. The technical assistance component of Norad's grant will support also preparing bankable projects. That is essential for implementing the facility. I would also express my high appreciation for Norway joining the Blue Action Fund initiative in this year in January. Now with a strong Nordic access, means Sweden and Norway. I want to thank Norad for its financial contribution as well as its technical inputs for joining the Blue Action Fund Supervisory Board. And finally, in addition, the German side, this means our government and KfW, would appreciate highly if Norway could be one also to join the second international initiative, the Legacy Landscape Fund. Ongoing discussions we have with France, Denmark, United Kingdom, and also private philanthropic funders. So we would appreciate also if the Norwegian interest is high, and we are looking forward for further discussions. And we are also ready to facilitate in all directions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Helmut. Indeed, it is said that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Evidently, ATI's multi-stakeholder partnerships and collaborations speak to the latter and well aligns with SDG 7 and 17. Impact, collaboration, and sustainability. That's the ATI language. Therefore, to mark the official launch of ATI NORAD partnership, I invite the three principals on stage for a quick photo shoot.
Can you see me?
We can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you both, even though it's only digitally. But that's the way where the world has turned out. So.
Thanks.
Great.
Of the ATI NORAD partnership. A big thank you to all that made this possible.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. So we'll move on to the next session. And in this session, we'll hear more about RLSF and the changes ATI has made to the facility in order to enhance it. I welcome Obi Banda, the ATI underwriter in charge of RLSF, to give a brief overview of the new RLSF structure. Over to you, Obi.
Thank you, Lucy. So my role today is quite simple. I think building on the words that have been shared by Manuel, Bard, and Helmut, as well as Benjamin in his opening remarks, I'll try to go through a few slides and give you an overview of the changes that we've made, why we're excited about these changes, and what the next steps are on an operational level. Now that we have this new partner on board, what's going to follow next, and that's what I will hope to clarify on over the next few minutes. Effectively, this is a curtain raiser, I believe, for the panel discussion that will follow, where our industry experts will probably share a bit more detail and provide a bit more context about what the value add of these changes will be. So going back to when RLSF was set up in 2017, the key challenge that we're looking to address is one of liquidity. Most of you attending today's event will be quite familiar with this risk, but just to take you back a little bit, what this means is that on most power purchase agreements that are signed between IPPs and off-takers, typically the buyer of the power, in this case being a state-owned entity, will be required to provide what is called buyer payment security. That buyer payment security can take the form of funds in escrow, or that entity will be required to procure a letter of credit with a local commercial bank playing that role. Now, typically, these guarantees or liquidity instruments will be required as a prerequisite prior to financial close, which means you're looking at a period of 1 year, potentially more, before even construction begins. Now, because these instruments can be quite costly to procure, at least for utilities, even if they can afford to, it may not represent the best use of their limited cash resources. And therein lies the benefit of RLSF to host governments, to utilities, and to IPPs. When you look at the solution that we are providing, it does either one of two things. It can replace the buyer payment security required of the host government, or it can complement any instrument they are providing. In a practical sense, what that means is if the government or the utility is able to provide 3 months of buyer payment security, ATI, working closely with our partners, we can then add an additional 3, 6, 9, or 12 months with our instrument. What that means in terms of project bankability is that instead of having only 3 months worth of payment security available to the project for 5, 10, or even the entire lifetime of the project, by adding the RLSF, we are improving the bankability of the entire structure. Now, since 2017 to date, as Manuel indicated, we've supported 4 projects so far. We expect Support to issue a policy in support of the 5th policy at some point within the next month or 2. That project is in Uganda, and it will mark the last project we'll support under phase 1 of RLSF. Now, what is phase 1 of RLSF? When the product was launched in 2017, we selected a bank to issue the letters of credit for each and every project. That bank was ABSA South Africa, and that relationship has worked very well so far. However, as with any institution, we've learned that there are areas we could improve upon the existing coverage. We've learned that there are inefficiencies that might exist that we can better improve upon. We've tried to explore ways in which we can make the product cheaper and more competitive in the market. We've tried to make changes that allow for this structure to be easily deployed. Within the existing structure, how RLSF works is that ATI, with our donor partners, historically that was only KfW, but going forward, including Norad, we provide collateral, either through cash, which the donors are providing, or on-demand guarantees, which ATI is providing off our own balance sheet. That collateral is for the benefit of the LC issuing bank, ABSA within phase 1, and then ABSA thereafter issue letters of credit for the benefit of IPPs. That structure has been successful, but we are hoping as we go into this new dawn with the various partners that we are working with, we can make it even simpler, we can make it cheaper, and we can find ways to make it more effective. As of today, we've issued 4 policies in Burundi and 3 in Malawi, and the 5th one in Uganda that will follow. As we go into phase 2, these are the summary of changes that you can see on your screen. And of course, this presentation and any other presentation that may be shared today will be available. Simply reach out and we can share those details with you. The changes that we are going to make are as follows. First of all, we're introducing a new partner, which is Norad. That means we'll get additional support in terms of the pool of cash collateral we need to deploy towards RLSF, as well as the level of capacity at ATI, to effectively deploy these guarantees. One other change that we'll make is that from Q2 of this year, the policies under RLSF will be issued directly by ATI without the involvement of an LC issuing bank. We are doing that for a few reasons. Firstly, it makes the contractual structure simpler. Secondly, it makes the product cheaper because we don't have to incorporate the costs of the LC issuing bank going forward. Thirdly, when you look at the existing contractual structure and the amount of time it takes us to agree on the various changes to the contracts, it can take quite some time, and the developers and lenders we've worked with so far can attest to that. In issuing the policies directly as ATI, we are hoping to cut down on those lead times. The fourth reason is one around the rating. As most of you will be aware, the rating of banks is limited by the rating of the country in which those banks are located. ATI is A-rated and does not have that limitation. It means going forward, the policies that will be issued under RLSF, this being phase 2, will benefit from ATI's rating of A stable by S&P and Moody's respectively. In a practical sense, what are these changes speaking towards? The first one is a change around how much cover we are providing. In phase 1 of RLSF, we could only cover 6 months worth of revenue. Going forward, we'll double that to 12 months worth of revenue. In phase 1 of RLSF, we could issue policies for a period of up to 10 years. Going forward, we'll issue these policies for a period of up to 15 years, which we hope will provide more comfort to lenders and developers into these transactions. Another change is about project size. In the existing RLSF structure, that being phase 1, we could support projects of up to 50 megawatts because we were trying to utilize the pool of cash we had available as much as possible. Going forward, we expect that we'll be able to support projects of up to 100 megawatts. And on a case-by-case basis, we can look at projects much larger than that. And hopefully we can make a bigger impact with RLSF, growing on the early success that we've had so far. Beyond RLSF, there are other initiatives that ATI will undertake, which we hope will, as the CEO indicated, build towards ATI being a center of excellence in the renewable space. Now, those changes are, first of all, extensive capacity building at ATI. What that means for lenders, developers, and governments is we hope to take a more proactive role in engaging with regulators, power utilities, to help them and to give them a guiding hand as they look to de-risk their various projects. We've done this in the past, but courtesy of this additional support, we hope to do more. Apart from that, one thing that ATI will look to do from the month of March going forward is to develop bespoke guarantee instruments for distributed renewable energy projects. We're speaking about C&I transactions, which are increasingly becoming popular across the continent for various reasons. We are looking at off-grid initiatives, which historically have not benefited from the same level of guarantee products as, say, the grid-connected projects. We are hoping to explore guarantee instruments for transmission projects. So that's a challenge we are putting out to the market as well. If there are gaps that you are aware of, if you believe ATI can be a strong partner, please do reach out because we are aggressively looking to improve upon these areas and make sure that our guarantee instruments continue to be responsive. So I've come to the end of the presentation, and at the very end of it, I'm very pleased to share with you the new RLSF logo that we have in place, incorporating the new partner that is Norad. So thank you, Lucy, and I look forward to interacting with the rest of the attendees via the Q&A session at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obi, for the very informative presentation. And to our participants, please remember to leave any questions you might have in the comment box. Before we move on to the next session, we'll take one poll question, which will be displayed on the screen shortly. So to participate in this question, kindly respond by clicking on the most applicable answer in your view. So the question is, what should ATI's focus area be going forward in the renewable energy sector? A, increase geographical scope of the RLSF. B, development of new guarantee instruments similar to RLSF for the benefit of C&I projects. And C, technical assistance support to African governments and the public. And D, all the above. So far, it appears that the majority are for B, development of new guarantee instruments similar to RLSF. We can give it a second and then wrap it up. Well, I think we can conclude that a majority prefer B, and ATI will take this into consideration and aim at developing new guarantee instruments. Thank you all for participating in this poll question. So we'll now have a panel discussion on the new RLSF structure and the role of liquidity instruments in de-risking renewable energy power projects. This session will be moderated by Rosina Thompson, ATI underwriter. Over to you, Rosina.
Thank you very much, Lucy, and thanks to everyone who made time out of your busy schedules to join us for this afternoon session. By way of introduction, my name is Rosina Thompson. I am an underwriter with ATI, and I'll be moderating the panel discussion, which will focus on the new RLSF structure. Obi had shed a lot of light on the new structure. We would also be looking at the role of liquidity instruments in de-risking renewable energy power projects on the African continent. With me today are experts in the field who at this point I will allow introduce themselves by telling us a bit about their roles, their organization, and some of the projects they have been involved in across the continent. As the saying goes, ladies first. So I would request Jo, the Senior Associate at Trinity International LLP, to introduce herself first. This will be followed by Alec, Head of Risk at Camco Clean Energy, and then we'll end the introductions with Wilfred, the Director of Development at Serengeti. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you, Rosina, and thank you everyone for joining today. As Rosina said, I am a Senior Associate at Trinity International LLP. We are a boutique law firm based in London with offices in both Paris and DC. And we specialise really in emerging markets project finance transactions. Those are particularly focused on the energy and infrastructure sector, and therefore a lot of our work relates to renewable energy projects. We advise a variety of different types of clients, including project developers, lenders, sometimes governments, and also, of course, market participants such as ATI and KfW in relation to structures such as the RLSF. Trinity were first involved with the RLSF at its establishment in 2016 and 2017, where we worked with KfW and ATI to structure the RLSF product and obviously to develop the documentation. Since then, we've been involved in the rollout of the initial RLSF product and are now working with all of the participants in the new enhanced product, advising ATI, KfW, and working with Norad to develop that and hopefully roll it out. So thank you.
Alec, you can go next.
Oh, thank you so much, Rosina, and hello to everybody. I'm Alec Joubert, Head of Risk at Camco Clean Energy. Camco is a climate and impact fund manager. We manage our own fund called Spark, which is focused on C&I projects. And since 2016, we have also managed the Renewable Energy Performance Platform with funding from the UK government, specifically focused on renewable energy power generation in both the on and off grid sector, and looking particularly to fill a gap for smaller to medium-sized projects. The ATI is a long-standing key partner of REP, has been a partner since 2016, and REP's investment in the 7.5 megawatt Mabuga solar PV project in Burundi, which is developed by Gigawatt Global and also funded by Inspired Evolution via their Evolution 2 fund, was of course the first recipient of a guarantee under the ATI RLSF product. Thank you, Rosina, back to you.
Thank you, Alec. Wilfred, kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rosina. Wilfred van den Bos, I'm Development Director at Serengeti Energy, previously known as RARA. We changed our name last year. We are an independent power producer. We're developing, constructing and operating renewable energy projects, small to medium sized, up to 50 megawatts in sub-Saharan Africa. We're currently having 6 operational power plants spread over the continent in Uganda, Rwanda, and South Africa. And at the moment, we're building 3 projects in Uganda, Malawi, and Sierra Leone. We are supported by good shareholders, of which some of them are also on this call. We have KfW, Norfund, and NDF, and are at the moment working on adding some new shareholders in our group, headquartered in Kenya, and we have offices in Cape Town and Senegal as well. Our engagement with RLSF started especially on the Kota Kota 21 megawatt AC solar project in Malawi, where we executed the documentation and developed a very good working relationship. We're at the moment still working on one other project with this RLSF product, and we hope to use it more frequently going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilfred. Thanks, gentlemen and lady. Now we'll dive into our discussions for today. Before then, I'll urge our speakers to keep our responses concise so that we remain within the allotted time for the discussions. To our August audience, I would humbly request that you keep your questions coming in by dropping them in the comments section so that we are able to address them at the latter session of this event. Now let's dive in. I'm going to start with you, Alec. CAMCO, as a fund manager, has been creating financing solutions for some of the renewable energy projects on the continent. You had mentioned in the introduction that you are not just involved in government utility, in the government utility space, but then you are also undertaking some C&I projects as well. What would you say your experience has been, or CAMCO's experience has been, using RLSF in its current form?
We were a very early and very eager adopter of the RLSF product. In fact, involved in some of the early development. It very definitely has filled a gap. Very much a product that was needed, I would say, and is still needed. The liquidity is an absolutely key risk to manage and to manage carefully for any lender. And the product is certainly one that has helped that project to get ahead, to get constructed, and to get where it is. We continue to liaise very closely with the ATI in terms of expanding the number of projects that we work with you on. And yes, I think it has definitely filled a need across the market, to echo Wilfred's comments earlier.
Thanks, Alec. Wilfred, you had also mentioned ATI support for the Kota Kota project in Malawi. It would be good for you to throw a bit of light on your experience with the RLSF in its current form on that particular project.
Oh, absolutely. The points the RLSF project is addressing from a liquidity perspective is, I think it's 2 sides. One is for the utility company. It is of great support to them because they don't need to cash back typically the letters of credits that will be required. And on the other side, from us as a developer and for for senior lenders from a bankability perspective. It has been very supportive on Kota Kota. When we started negotiating the power purchase agreement, I think RLSF was just coming in the air. So originally we were aiming for an LLC, but quickly, we were started to really push also for this product towards the off-taker and the government, which was fully embraced by their side. So positive experience, good working relationship, as I said, with the ATI team. I think the project in Burundi started a bit earlier, so we were able to leverage a bit on it from a negotiation, and especially the senior lenders getting comfortable with the documentation perspective, and it all turned out quite well. Thank you.
Thanks, Wilfred. It's great to know that your experience with RLSF in this current form was actually a good one. I would move straight to Joe, maybe coming from the perspective of the contractual structure, possibly if you could comment on the current structure of the RLSF in that regard.
Absolutely, thank you. So as Obi had alluded to in the initial presentation on the existing structure, the way the RLSF currently works is that the project company benefiting from the product will receive a standby letter of credit from ABSA, issued by ABSA. The only other documentation the project company is then party to is something we call the Terms of Use Agreement. And that's a document by which ATI, ABSA is the LC issuing bank, and the project company all join contractually to agree to certain representations and undertakings in relation to the way that the project will be constructed and operated. And that's really that key contractual document at the moment. So the current structure from a project company perspective is relatively straightforward. It is just those two documents. And I think as we have rolled the product out across the 4 projects so far, any initial creases in that documentation have started to be ironed out. But I think, as Obi was mentioning earlier, that process has also allowed us to see where potentially efficiencies could be found in the future. And I think that is a lot of what has led to the enhanced structure that we are launching.
Thanks, Joe. What would you say would be some of the benefits of the enhanced structure in terms of the simpler contracts? If you could just highlight on that a bit for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, again, Obi touched on a lot of this in his presentation. But the key, really, I think, with the new structure is that we're now looking to simply one document between the project company and ATI, which will set out both what will replace the standby letter of credit, which will actually be more like a direct guarantee from ATI itself directly to the project company. And it will remove from the structure that third counterparty. There will no longer be an LC bank. And that in itself inevitably simplifies the process and just streamlining both from an administrative perspective, documentation perspective, and also, of course, that will have cost implications going forwards and should make the product even more accessible to the projects within its sphere.
Thanks, Joe. Let me just move back to Alec, and then a follow-up would go to Wilfred. Just staying on the benefits on the enhanced coverage. I think Obi in his presentation had mentioned that the new structure would would come with, an extended coverage of up to 12 months worth of revenue, and then I think a 15 years tenor. Alec, can you sort of share your thoughts on how developers like yourself would stand to benefit with the enhanced coverage?
Thank you very much. First of all, I think we have seen demand for this project from a number of countries which have until now not been members of the ATI or who had not yet signed a memorandum of understanding with the ATI. So we very much welcome the determination to expand the scope of the product itself in terms of its country coverage. That would be point one. I think from a lender's perspective, if you do have concerns about the creditworthiness of the taker, the bankability project is always improved if the duration of the cover can be extended beyond a 6-month period, 6 months of scheduled payments to 12 months. It's always good news. And then
the time that we have, I would move quickly on to the next point, where I would like you to, share your thoughts on what you think some of the gaps are within the available de-risking instruments, and how ATI, alongside other stakeholders, the likes of Norad and KFW, can work together towards addressing this.
So the easy question remains for me. So on the side of potential improvements, and was interesting to see your voting slide a bit earlier. I think, I think all of them should be ticked, but I think it's important from a country eligibility perspective from ATI side, that list can be extended. That would be really beneficial for like a company as ourselves. We're working in countries all over sub-Saharan Africa, and I mean, if they're not on the list, of course, there's no coverage. I think if once you have a good product in place, it's good, focus on it and try to expand it, and make it, one of the first products utility companies and also and developers can run towards to support on this very important liquidity topic. I mean, the increased tenor, of course, is very important because typically the door-to-door tenors from our external project financiers are longer. And I don't know how general you want to discuss this particular topic, because we can go to PRIs, PRGs, and it becomes quite an extensive topic here. I think some market trends we see all over sub-Saharan Africa for quite some time is that there's clearly, a downside pressure on tariffs. So tariffs are coming down, returns for developers are coming down. You see more and more pressure from governments, often, backed by parties like IMF and World Bank, to be very hesitant with giving government support, to the payment obligations of off-takers under these power purchase agreements, where the utilities are often not financially sustainable. So from a private investor perspective, these aspects these risks are to be mitigated. So any project that can support it is most welcome, including, of course, this liquidity project that has been launched. And it's great that Norad is now joining during this launch event. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilfred. Joe, would you like to add a comment on the gaps?
Sure, happy to. Perhaps taking it a little more general, I think one of the big gaps that I certainly still see in the market relates to currency. And that's both in terms of convertibility of local currency into hard currency, the transferability of that country offshore, and more generally, the availability of hard currency within some of these jurisdictions to actually meet hard currency obligations. And for as long as a lot of the private sector financing coming into these projects is denominated in hard currency, and a lot of the offtake agreements are at least payable in local currency, I think there continues to be a risk there that is not necessarily adequately addressed at present. There's obviously commercial FX hedging available, but that can be incredibly expensive. I know ATI and others already have solutions for this risk in place through transferability and inconvertibility policies. But for those, the waiting periods do tend to be quite long, and that can be really difficult from both a project company perspective and a lender perspective when looking at risk mitigation. So I do think there's a gap there potentially for whether it's an enhanced version of the existing policy that in some way brings down those waiting periods or provides more substantive cover, or something else, a new product that people are able to come up with to fill that gap. I think an innovative solution there would really help. And I think that does also extend to availability. Obviously, availability of hard currency is a much bigger macroeconomic point and related to so many much wider factors. But it is dealt with generally, the way we see it dealt with, is on a project-by-project, case-by-case basis with very bespoke solutions and products. And I think there's perhaps some more thought leadership to be done there and some more products to be innovated to try and assess and assist with some of that risk mitigation as well.
Yeah, sure, Joe. Thanks for that. I would move to Alec. Just briefly, beyond grid-connected IPPs, do you see similar gaps for de-risking instruments such as RLSF for CNI projects or other off-grid structures, since you are heavily involved in that space?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I would first of all like to echo what Joe has been saying on the currency risk side of things, and would welcome development of such a product. Chemco, REP, ATI, we are all very seriously focused on improving energy access across the continent. If you want to do that, you really do have to focus on off-grid electrification. When you're looking to finance mini-grid developers or solar home system developers, these are often very risky, by their nature, very risky transactions. I think any kind of product along the lines of what I might call a minimum demand guarantee, something that particularly focuses on the uncertainty associated with demand, particularly for an early stage developer of a mini grid project, for example, that provides certainty to the lender in the end around cash flow available for debt service, would be a welcome contribution. So I would make a call for a minimum demand guarantee kind of project. It may well work fairly similarly in the end to the RLSF product, but certainly I think there is a demand for that kind of product in that space.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. We've noted that. Just to round up our discussions, I would like each one to sort of highlight on this point going forward, whether you think there is the continued need for such insurance or guarantee instruments. Just quick roundup comments, and then we'll end this session. I'll start with Wilfred.
I think the short answer is yes, there is definitely a need for these projects, and these not only from us as a developer, but also from the senior lenders typically on these projects. So yes.
Yeah. Alec, your final words?
I want to commend the ATI for its work and for its determination in this space. It is a uniquely positioned organization, and would want to continue to support the organization in what it's doing in the development of these products. And thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this call, and for the support offered to our endeavors so far and to the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. I started with Joe, and I would like to end with you, Joe. Let's have your final words, please.
Thank you, Rosina. Again, I think, like Wilfred, the short answer is absolutely yes. I think the role that ATI and its partners are playing in identifying real gaps in the market and coming up with innovative and practical solutions to try and address those is really important. And it's a very valuable role. It's a very valuable set of products developed so far. And it will continue, I hope, to encourage significant private sector investment, both in the sector and in the continent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So let me use this opportunity to thank all our panelists for such insightful discussions on the RLSF facility and the need for de-risking instruments on the continent. My takeaway today has been that ATI can actually do more as a DFI in the renewable energy space, particularly in supporting CNI projects, as highlighted by Alec. Unfortunately, time did not allow us to continue with our conversation. However, I must reiterate that this has been a very informative session. Thanks once again. I would hand over to Lucy to take us through the next session. Over to you, Lucy.
Lucy, you're muted. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you so much, Rosina, and the panelists for such an insightful discussion. We'll now take the final poll question, which shall appear on your screen shortly. And the question is, what is the biggest challenge in making use of liquidity instruments like RLSF? So A, the scope of cover is limited. B, the pricing is too high. C, the instruments do not sufficiently make projects bankable. Or the risk profile of power projects has improved and such instruments are not always required. So far, it appears as though a majority are of the view that the instruments do not sufficiently make projects bankable. We can give it 1 second. Well, it still appears as though the instruments do not sufficiently make projects bankable. Thank you all for participating in the poll. ATI will take that into consideration. So before I hand over to Benjamin for the final remarks, we will move to the Q&A session. And in the interest of time, I'll just randomly pick 3 questions. So the first question, hi, I'm wondering whether the instrument will also be applicable to C&I projects with private off-takers instead of a national utility as public off-taker. I invite Obi to address this question.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you to the attendee that shared that question with us. So the simple answer is yes. We don't expect that this change will be available via RLSF, but as indicated throughout the session, one thing that ATI is looking to do is to develop instruments for the off-grid sector. So we are hoping to have a bespoke solution for the C&I space. At the moment, you can already provide such support, but we're hoping to develop a bespoke solution that can better address the concern. So yes, that will be available going forward.
Thank you so much, Obi. Thank you so much, Obi. So the next question we'll take, with the new RLSF structure and/or focus, I will imagine new exposures. How is ATI looking at de-risking these exposures? I invite Benjamin Mugisha to address this question.
Thank you, Lucy. So, I mean, quite correctly, as we grow the portfolio, we will see more and more exposures. As an underwriter, one of the things we look at therefore is diversifying the risk. So we will be looking to diversify this risk. I think it also links to some of the questions that have been raised or some of the observations that have been made about increasing the number of countries in which we can do more of this business. But inbuilt in RLSF is actually a de-risking mechanism because our partners, Norad and KfW at the moment, have also taken, a portfolio approach to the structuring of RLSF itself. So there is an inbuilt de-risking mechanism, but naturally we are a pari passu partner, so our exposures will grow, and the most immediate way of more or less managing the risk is by spreading the risk through diversification across several countries. As the product grows more and more, and we get more and more partners on board, then we might indeed look at how we can become even more pari passu in the way the exposures are distributed across the several partners. But at the moment, we are quite comfortable with the level of risk that we are taking as ATI, and of course, we are very happy and grateful to our partners for the way they've also participated in structuring the product to make sure that the risk, even though on an aggregate we have a larger exposure, is equally, managed between the partners.
Thank you, Benjamin. We'll move on to the next question. Could there be a portfolio of possible pre-screened energy partners ATI has worked with or would recommend for Southern Africa? For example, Zimbabwe, that ATI can work with. Benjamin?
If I can take that. So ATI is a multilateral DFI. We do not pre-screen our clients. In other words, we are not looking to pre-select who we work with. We are open to work with all, relevant stakeholders on the continent. So of course, as part of our due diligence, we will together work through a set of criteria just to understand each other better. But the simple answer is no. We would never actually pre-screen and pre-qualify, so to speak, our clients. We are open to working with every serious investor and developer and partner on the continent.
Thank you, Benjamin. And in the interest of time, we'll only take one last question. I think there are 3 questions in regard to this topic. So the one we'll pick is, could there be a portfolio of possible pre-screened, if a draw is made on the liquidity support agreement, will it be replenishable? If so, what are the mechanics for replenishment? Obi, please, you can take this one.
Sure. Thank you, Lucy. So what makes RLSF unique is that it's a revolving guarantee. The way it works is we provide the guarantee on behalf of the government. If there's a drawdown in 1 year, the requirement for us to replenish it is that we have to make a recovery from the defaulting off-taker or the defaulting government within 12 months from the date of default. In a practical sense, how that works is, let's assume we issue a 10-year policy today on the 1st of March in 2022. The project, for whatever reason, following a non-payment event, draws down on the guarantee before the end of the year. We as ATI would pay out, and then would engage the government, who's a shareholder, to reimburse us for that particular default. If the defaulting government pays us back within 12 months from the date of the initial drawdown, we then reinstate the underlying letter of credit. So over a 10 or 15-year policy period, the project can draw down in year 1, we get reimbursed by the government, and can thereby claim again in year 2 or any subsequent period. Of course, we hope that doesn't happen because that would point towards challenges on the project, but in principle, that's how the replenishment works. Provided we are reimbursed by the government within 12 months, the underlying guarantee or the letter of credit under phase 1 will be replenished. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obi. Unfortunately, that's all time could allow us to address, but we have taken note of the rest of the questions and we'll reach out via email with the responses. I now hand over to Benjamin Mugisha for the closing remarks. The stage is yours, Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Lucy, and we would like to obviously start by thanking Norad for finally concluding the process of joining RLSF, and as well as KFW, who have been our partners throughout the process from inception. So thank you to Bad and Helmut on behalf of your respective institutions for the support. And then in the context of today's event, I'd like to thank Manuel, Bad and Helmut for their opening remarks, as well as the panelists, Joe, Wilfred, and Alec. Thank you for your partnership over the last 5 years and for taking part in the panel today. Of course, thank you also to the ATI team, Obi, Rosina, and Lucy, as well as the various people in the back office, so to speak, preparing for this event. But above all, thank you to all the participants who were able to attend. I think we got some important feedback, and it was related to some of the statements we made, but of course also with room for improvement. So we agree with Wilfred. I think it's very important that the scope of and Alec, for that matter, the scope of RLSF from a country perspective is improved, and we are working on that. Cote d'Ivoire will join soon or complete the process of joining. It's actually a member, but there are some tweaks, and then we have several other countries at advanced stages. We will also obviously look to improve the offering of the product, whether it is off-grid, CNI, and various other options, including currency options. We will look to provide these options. I think the idea is not for ATI to provide a solution, but for ATI to actually understand the problem and then see how what we provide is not just a solution, but also an initiative that is triggered by the needs of our partners. So all of us are keen to take this feedback from the market, and we definitely will embed it in what we look at going forward. And of course, from a capacity perspective, we are now open and available to look at transactions. We actually do hope we can start to close transactions later on in this year. So, hopefully from Q2 of 2022, we can sign buying products under RLSF Plus, as we like to call it. But we've obviously got transactions in the pipeline. Some of you would be on this call, and we are hoping that those can proceed. Hopefully the pandemic is behind us. I mean, we see how that evolves, but obviously the continent's needs are real, and hope, there's been a clear understanding that this is not a one solution for everything, but we definitely always believed it was part of the bankability story. And I think the experiences of some of our partners have attested to how RLSF has been able to help get projects to financial close. And we do even have projects which are now operational with the support we provided. All in all, the initiative is up and running. We are very grateful for you attending this brief session. We do hope to hear from you. We will be sharing, this event will be on our social media, and we will be sharing it with everyone through that platform. So please look out for it. But more importantly, do reach out to us. Our contacts are on the website. We are always available to have a discussion around how we can, support you with RLSF and or complementing products, because we do have complementing products at ATI. So in conclusion, thank you all very much. I started out by giving the history. Now let's look forward and hopefully look to the future, where we will talk about after 1st March 2022, when we held this launch. These are the subsequent events that happened, and all of them aimed at greening Africa, increasing access to renewable energy. So thank you. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you.
Lucy, please unmute.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Lastly, we request you to participate in the survey that will be displayed on the screen. So thank you all so much.